Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Now, this video is going to be slightly different. This isn't a beginner's. This is actually more or less meant for someone who's been part of the game, who has been part of a different format of play, and now with access skills or once they have completed their primary focus in gameplay, will now change to the secondary or tertiary method of play. So the primary method of play would have been basically mining or production. And now that they've maxed out the production that they wanted to do or the mining they wanted to do, they now have all of the excess in skills and they don't know where to put them at the moment. Now you're in the late T7 into T8 and you're deciding, I want to focus a little bit more in combat. I want to get a feel for what it's like to do PvE. As I said, it is the main centerpiece of the game. Everybody goes through PvE. Now, from what I am showing you, this is with a large ship. Now, there are ways to train up small players and train them into these particular skills. Like if I had a fleet with 2 newbie players, I also have to keep checking up in the sector. Sorry about that. But if you had a team of newbie players with you, you could easily train them up to rat with the basics, pull them up level by level till they're finally ready to rat on a larger scale operation. Now, depending on the consistency of your fleet and how well versed they are in combat situations, they will differ in what they do. Now, one of the big things when it comes to differing your strategy is range kiting and close range brawling. Now, range kiting is actually players coming right out of the battlefield. They position themselves at 100, 150, 250, and you move in from an angle or you move in from a distance and you take enemies on one at a time and you keep them within your range. Now, the reason for this is you get all of the fast enemies to come to the front, you get the slow enemies to stay at the back. So the enemies who were really difficult to take down were right in front. They're also running the harder to escape mechanisms like Weber fires and what is this? Sorry, not disruptors. Warp disruptors, warp scramblers. So all of those will now come at you while you are far away from the center. That means you don't have to worry about overwhelming numbers. Now let me just loot up this anomaly. Now, the reason why I'm looting up this anomaly isn't because I really need the loot. It's actually because I want to stock it up and reprocess it. As I said, reprocessing is a very, very powerful skill. It can do a lot for you in terms of making up for mining or making up the remainder of the cost for ratting now. Now, when it came to what you saw me doing in the start of this video was a very basic fighting strategy. I was near the center with my maximum range. So let's open my weapon and let's see what's the range that I have. As I said, I'm near my maximum. I'm not at my maximum. My maximum is 43 kilometers. Let's see if there's an optimal given here. No. But if I set it to auto orbit, with the optimal ranges, it will pull me to the optimal range of my weapon. That's because at that range, my weapon won't miss. My weapon will be 100% in its best damage category. I will do more damage to opponents. So where I was doing 24,000 damage, I could do something like 27 or 28,000 damage. If I got a little bit too close with the long range weapon, it will take off that fall off from the damage as well. Because I'm too close, I'm hitting and I'm missing at the same time. I don't have that luxury of all-round combat. So with all of this being stated, those are the basics to what I am doing in terms of training up my ratting. Now, when you got a new ratter with you, someone who's just jumped from industry to industry, there are a few other things to note about teaching them the skill. Start them off with small ships. Frigates, destroyers, they're really, really inefficient, but that also means you have to look for smaller anomalies. T5, T6 are fantastic for players to start off learning in. You can take them on, they have a high range difficulty, and depending on the amount of time you put into it, you could easily master the skills needed to be a fantastic combat pilot using those. So here are the things you need to do in those type of situations to build up your arsenal. Number one, You get the pilot who is brand new, you rig them up with a basic set. You teach them how to do the most sustained, most stable type of combat. So that's going to be close range brawler type combat. That's going to be Nosferatu close range weapons and basic fittings. So basic fittings means MK3, MK5. The reason why you want to keep it down to those low range weapons is you don't want to make them incur too much of a cost. And the reason why you start them off with frigates and destroyers is it's a low range cost on the ship. If they ret and they jump through 20 different anomalies with you in the process of learning, they've made up the cost of that ship. It's easy. They can replace it. Remember, fly what you can afford to lose. Now, once they have done it, they're also picking up all this loot. They're going to grind it out in the station. They're going to get a ton of mats, and they now can focus on just the mats they need from the remainder of that list. So they have access. They have more material, more financial power in the game. And as they upgrade, they can now go from, let's say, for example, a frigate. They start off with a Condor 2. They can now upgrade to a Cormorant. Now, that is a destroyer. 2.5 3 million for a Cormorant. They jump into it, they start retting in these anomalies. Once more, they make up that 5 or 6 million for the complete cost of it with the basic fittings, and they can then go on and build up double that figure. They reach 6-7 million, and now you have the ability to run a cruiser, and that's how you build them up. Now they have a cruiser, they have more firepower, they have more ability. They don't have to spec out into any skills in those first two. You're just teaching them the basics. That's why it's always good to have another player around to help them out. And the first ship is obviously going to be the trainer class vessel or the free class vessels that we earned in our primary storyline. Now let me just get back in station because I just showed this with a little bit of a demonstration on slow range combat. Now, with the slow progression of combat, it can take you hours to complete these activities. And I'm not joking about it taking hours. This little combat that I did could take me 1.5 hours if I did it in a frigate, because it's just level 6. And it may not seem that difficult to most of us PvE players, but it is quite difficult. It would be easier to jump into level 2 and level 3 anomalies in high sec, build up a quick stash of 300,000 or 400,000, buy up a better frigate, upgrade that frigate a little bit, make 1 million in a couple of hours. That's 2 or 3 hours. Take that million, put it towards buying a destroyer, get a destroyer, go out again into those same fields, make 2 or 3 million. Now I have a destroyer. I can move up to T5, T6, jump out to more anomalies, make 5 or 7 million. With 7 million, I now can buy my first basic cruiser, my trainer cruiser, go out, ret a bit, do level 5, level 6, level 5, level 6, make a good 3 or 4 million in that day. Over a few days, over a week, I'll make my 40 or 50 million that's needed to buy my next ship, buy my regular, the regular ship is just the in-between, buy my Navy issue cruiser that's now pulling me up one whole class on the cruisers. I've got more power in my ship, I've got more rig settings, I've got more fittings, can start investing into that ship a little bit more, might think about putting a little bit of research into it. Rat level 6, maybe level 7 anomalies with the team, burn through it, kill anomalies, keep going at it, push hard. By the end of a month or so, you have at least 100, 200 million, save it up once more, build up even more, reach about 300 million, buy your first battle cruiser. Now this is where the whole thing comes in. As I said, you level 7, level 8. Buy your battle cruiser, fit up the battle cruiser, learn a few skills in your battle cruiser, and there you go. You are now in the game at the same point as me. Get your battle cruiser ready, save up some ISK, make another 300-400 million ISK on the side, fit it up with basic rigs, go out and rat with it. Now when you're ratting with your battle cruiser, an easy 20 to 30 million an hour. Very, very simple ratting. You just take on T6, T7. You take them on solo, T1, T2. With the right fittings, you can do 20 or 30 million an hour. You don't have to go at the slow rate of 1.2 million every 10 minutes. And that day is only going to get you 6 or 7. It's 7.2 million in that hour. So it's a very small figure to go for. So yes, you don't want to go that route. If you go and you equip the right weapons, the right setups on your ship, because you're acting solely T6, you can jump into that same sector with a bunch of friends, rat through with a two-man team in mediums and larges, because now the two-man team can take on that large encounter. And there you go. Instead of making 1.2 an hour, you made 1.2 an hour, 1.5, 2 million every 10 minutes. There you go. There's 12 million an hour. You play for 4 hours in a day. That's 48 million. 48 million is a nice good figure. You stash it away for the first day. Second day you do the same thing. There you go. You're making a couple 100 million in that week. Once more, you can build up your next ship. Keep going at it, keep ratting. You're now capable of taking on T8, T9 with enough skills put into your weapon systems. You don't have to do laser or missile. You can do whatever you feel comfortable playing with. Keep going with it, grow more, grow more. You finally reach a point where you have 1 or 2 billion saved up. You now can think about getting ready to go battleship, possibly even go for another type of higher end cruiser like a faction cruiser. Build up more of your resources, reach 7-8 billion, build your first battle cruiser, gain another 3 billion over the next few weeks, few months. Build up your arsenal. Now when it comes to what I'm talking about in ratting, this is for a beginner. How are you going to progress up? The one thing I didn't count into your whole equation is scouts, inquisitors, and dead space. A scout on average is worth between 2.5 to 30 million a piece. So doing one scout, which should take you between 10 to 20 minutes, is worth 30 million ISK. It skyrockets your average income from the loot that you're making. Now that's because inside it has items that are worth a lot in terms of value. It has good rigs, it has good items within it. So you use this here to gain that upper hand in your next stage of combat. Now moving on from that point, the next thing that you could do for progressing as that player is, once you have started doing those T5, T6 scouts and inquisitors, you might end up with the dead space. When it comes to a dead space, they aren't very simple. They're high-end gaming. They are not for beginners. Get a hold of a nice big team, 4, 5, 6 players. You can easily make 200 million off the dead space itself. Divided by 6, you're still well within that region of 20 million for that activity. Plus there's a nice big bounty from it in terms of the ISK that you earn. It gives out a total bounty of about 50 million. So 50 million divided 6 ways, it still isn't a very bad income. It is a very good income. Sometimes you can get very lucky with them. And let's say that, for example, the Sanchez you're doing, you get something like 6 debris. Each debris is worth 50 million a piece at the moment on the market. That will be 50 million a player. Plus, say for example, a medium C-type shield repair, you can get 2 or 3. You can get heat sinks, you can get laser weapons. All of these have a high value. And overall, the general split between players in a dead space is between 20 to 100 million ISK. They are high-end goods and they definitely are worth the investment. So as I said, that's 100 million ISK. It's no small pullout from those activities. If you have a good enough team of maybe 6 or 7 players and you'll have good enough strategies, you can do a dead space in 30 minutes. If you are even better than that, you can do a dead space in 15 minutes like it was nothing. That's because you are using the right strategies. You use guardians with their shield fields. You use shield repairs from a support ship. So logistics and guardian ship together. So that's 2 ships who are taking up place in your fleet. And you have 3 big DPS dealers around you. You can wipe out the T7 dead space in just near 15 minutes. That's if you are in that type of a team with that much of power. You can have somebody else who's buying up all the loot for you, or someone who's helping you pick up all the loot. They come in, they pick up all the loot, they sit on that level, you jump down another level, you clear out the level, they jump in, they pick up the loot. you go on till you reach the final level, level 4 within the dead space. And once you kill off that level, you have made a nice big chunk of bounty between the 5 of you, the 6th person being the looter, jumps in, picks up everything, cleans it out. 15 minutes from level 1 to level 4. Even though there's about 100 and something ships in that entire encounter, that is how fast you can do it even now with the restrictions that are in. However, you have to use certain formats of play like the guardians and the repairs, because you need everybody to sit in there. Then there are settings you have to go through. Let me just open my settings. For battle settings, you have to switch them up, switch them down. This is how you get into playing it properly. So you go into your battle settings, you have auto orbit. Now you have default and you have optimal range. If you switch on optimal range, you will end up in the closest range of the optimal range of the closest applied weapon or system that is active when you are fighting. So if you have Web of Eyes, it will keep you at 10. So one of the things that players can do just to prevent ending up in the close range combat all the time is they can switch it to default and set the default orbit to the maximum range of their weapons. That's going to give you the slower, more safe combat like what I was doing in the start of the video. Now another thing you can do is switch off orbit altogether, and you can jump into an anomaly with a friend, and what you are going to do in that anomaly is you are going to switch around with the responsibility. Now when I say the switch around with the responsibility, he's responsible for all your guarding. So a Moa Guardian or Phantasm, one of those ships is giving you your shield, and you're responsible for dealing DPS. So you might switch up your fittings on your ship if you are close enough to a station, or you will do an all-round fit like what I have on my ship and jump around and rat like 20 or 30 jumps around your base, and you will rat everything in that region. You will get as much as you possibly can and return to base. Now here is something just to note on the higher end. T9 and T10 anomalies pay out between 3 million and 4 million per anomaly. Now those are the smalls. Going up to the largest, it's about 10 to 20 million per anomaly. They are really that tough in terms of how hard they pay. You don't want to try and take on bases. Bases are really high paying. If you take out a base which is in a dead area where you want to reset it, you can easily make 100 million off a base. Now I know that sounds like a very good payout, but the base is way more difficult. It's like taking on 100 enemies all at once. It's about the same difficulty as a dead space altogether. Plus it has a lot more ships that use a lot more debuffs against you, and it can become really difficult to escape when you are fighting something like 60 frigates altogether in that entire anomaly. Now that's the entire anomaly. At one time you might have 5 or 6 frigates on you, and they might not be within the optimal range just using long range disruptors on you. So that's something to think about when facing off against bases. Don't ever take on bases for a brand new player. It's really dangerous even for you in high sec. Level 3 bases will be a fantastic way for you to make ISK. The problem for you is it is difficult to play. You might need a 3 or 4 man team to help you take on that type of activity, or you might need a big player to jump in and help you speed through it with the shared equal base on your fleet. So that is one of the ways for you to get ISK quickly. Having a good and strong teammate with you is also another way to get ISK properly. They can get you up in terms of where you're going with your ISK. And remember, the one rule to the play is only fly what you can afford to lose. So if I ever lose my Cyclone, I can always drop back to my Caracal Navy issue. If I lose my Caracal Navy issue, I will drop back to my Caracal Trainer, which I will not lose, because if it is destroyed, I'll use an insurance certificate, and I have enough replacement parts to replace it 100 times at the moment. So I can go out and I can rat over and over and over again with my Caracal Trainer, and I will never ever lose that investment. It is my safe point when it comes to where I can fall back to. So that is why I can afford to risk running around in a Cyclone, because I have a way to fall back and I have a method to come back up in terms of ISK. If I lost, for example, my Caracal Trainer, I'll just go back to high sec and rat in high sec till I get my next Caracal, because I have a Caracal which sits in high sec for me. It's basically my encounter Caracal. It hasn't been used since the update, so I don't know if it still is is as efficient as it once was. Another thing, if you are a player in a nullsec corp, you might want to set up double bases. And when I say double bases, I mean a highsec base with all your ships and a nullsec base with all your ships. So one in nullsec, one in highsec, so that you can alternate between doing different types of PvE activities. There's encounters and stories in highsec and lowsec, and in nullsec there's dead space and inquisitors and scouts that spawn much more frequently. The higher the level of the sector, the more dangerous the sector, and the more likely you are to spawn big activities. Also means that they're higher paying for mining, ratting, all activities in them are much richer. So that is about the breakdown that I'm giving for now. I hope that you all have enjoyed this video, and this is the breakdown to starting your ratting. Now remember, it's start off small, use basic fittings, basic strategies, get a feel to your ship with the range combat, come in at 100 or 70 or 60, whichever one you feel safer with, kite out one enemy at a time, kill them, then get used to brawling in the smalls, fight in the close range combat, defeat the enemies. Once you are used to that small close range combat, upgrade to your next level ship, which is going to be a destroyer, or get a bigger ship than that to a cruiser, play it in the close range, play it in the long range, get a feel to your ship, upgrade again to the next level of a normal league or medium, get a feel to it, get the higher ISK, make yourself more efficient at that play. It may take you about a month to get efficient at ratting. By the time you reach the end of your month, you'll be ready to take on inquisitors and scouts. By the time you've reached 1.5 months, you will be ready to take on a dead space. You'll be able to listen to the different calls that come out within them. So if a player tells you you're not going to rotate, we're running a set point in the start, do maximum DPS, you can change out your fittings, have a set of fittings ready to always go for your changes. So in terms of what I am doing right now, if I wanted to set up my ships perfectly, I would run my fastest ship, which would be a Condor or Condor Interceptor if I purchase one, all the way to highsec to pick up goods for me and run it back up. Or if I want to be a little bit more gutsy, I would run something like a Cruiser Interceptor because I have a lot of cruiser skills, and I could run that up and down, risking the chance of being tackled. Now that is something which a lot of players still don't realize is a risk, because with the interceptors you can really skip the bubbles, but you can't skip things like, how do I put it, things like a warp scrambler or warp disruptor. Wait, these are the guardians. Here we go, interceptors. Yeah, they're really expensive, and if I wanted a cheap one, I'd have to go bellicose. Here's something for me. Let's see what its cargo hold is. 610 cubic meters. It is a bit small, but it can run through. But the ship can run through a blockade. So that's something that you might think about if you're running nullsec as well. Buy one of those ships, hold them just for transport. You can autopilot with them and log out, because most players aren't going to think of disrupting them. They are quite fast as it is. You just spec them out for speed and warp, and they're going to jump through gates non-stop. Put onto them basic fittings. You're not really going to use them for combat, just the transport ship for the small range jumps up and down. Whew. So those are the basics. That's what I would have run in the nullsec if I was a starter player. I'm more or less in the mid game of the play, so I won't really run that type of a setup. I'd run different ships by choice. So thank you all for watching. Have a good day, and I hope to see you all